Hey YouTube, I wanted to make this video yesterday, but I had company, and you know how it is when you have company, you never get done what you started to do, and you don't want to be rude, but here's what I want to do. I want to show you this. For those of you who are having a hard time trying to see the log, I'm going to give you a demonstration that's kind of practical so that you can understand more about what I'm doing. Okay, so this string represents what I see when I look at a log. I first look for the straight line between the center of this end and the center of that end. I ignore everything else. Now, here's what this thing gives you. Here's what you can learn from this. And you can use the string to do this if you're not good at estimating. I mean, you know, I can guess pretty close a lot of measurements because I've done a lot of measuring. If you haven't, it becomes more difficult. But if you look here, like roughly to the edge of the tree, and I'm looking all the way down there, it's 5.5 inches, 5.5 inches there roughly. So you're pretty much in the center of this log here. So from there to here, if the log was only that long, you don't have a problem with that log. It's basically straight. The problem comes, and this log is sort of goofy, it bows up and that way at the same time. So you can see then when you get up in here, you're measuring across. I got like 9 inches here and 2 inches on that side, and you know that lasts from there to about right here, and then this thing pretty much is in the center again. So if you were to cut this log, the biggest piece you can get out of this, if you're going by the center thing, would be, you know, like maybe, let's say 4 inches on each side. So I might get an 8-inch cant out of this thing. And that 8-inch cant would last to right about here, and then it would die out. So if I wanted to use this whole piece as one log, what I got to do is try and find a happy medium somewhere. So then what I start thinking to myself, and I do this just by looking at it, but like I say, you know, some guys can't because they're not used to measuring, and that's fine. This is not something that's, I'm trying to show you visually what I talk about. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and it hasn't been happening, and my videos seem repetitive a little bit to me, and I just wanted to show you a little difference here. Now, so if you take this then, and you move this over just a little bit, like say about 2 inches, you can see now that that straight line is starting to give you a little bit more wood here. Now you're not going to get, you probably won't get an 8-inch cant out of this, at least a full cant. But if you notice here, I had 3 inches before, or 2 inches before. Now I have like 3.5 inches, okay? And it's still not that far from the center down here. So this is what I start looking at, and I say to myself, okay, so the center of the tree is not in the center. The center of this tree, you know, as an overall straight line, is more like over this way. So now if you look at that, if you were going to use this whole log, to be reasonable, you might get, a 5-inch cant out of this, maybe, yeah, about a 5-inch or 4-inch full-size cant out of this thing, just because of this bend in it. And if you think about that, if you get a 4-inch cant, and this is the center line, that means that on each side of this you have to have at least 2 inches. Well, you can see where 2 inches is here. Gives me a little room for bark. I would have more over in here. And sometimes, like this side here, this may be where you get that little extra board that you weren't expecting. Sometimes. It doesn't always happen. And the other thing is, I'm looking at this board, or this log, with the twist in the most dramatic sense that I can make it. Because if you turn this log this direction a little bit, you're going to find out that it's actually much straighter than that. But you need to look, and that's why I turned the cant with the cant hook, or the log with the cant hook. You need to see the best side and the worst side to be able to determine what you're going to do with the log. And again, you know, a lot of guys can see this like I do, just like that, but some people don't. So once you look at this, you start to realize, well, you know, if I start my cuts, like say that log was turned to this, was to the side, you don't want to go crazy cutting this log on this side because you'll lose the cant that you would have got out of it really fast. But obviously you can get a cant out of that thing. And the size will all depend on what happens and how much, you know, bark you get in the twist and how cautious you are as you approach it. Now, why am I showing this? Because not everybody has access to stuff like this. Okay, where if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter. You got a 12-inch or 18-inch cant to play with. You can make mistakes and still come out smelling like a rose with all the wood that you're going to have. But, you know, if you're trying to salvage some smaller logs like this one, this log here, at the small end here is only 10 inches. So obviously you're not going to get a great big cant out of that. And at the point where I have it there, you know, what you want to do is you measure down roughly, I'm at 5 inches there. So that's where the cut would have to be, right where that tape is, in order to get me a 5-inch cant out of this. So anyway, you look at it in the worst light, okay, which is what you see there. And then you want to turn the log while it's on the bunk to the best light. Okay, in other words, you want the straightest parts showing. And sometimes you don't know what to do because they're so bad that it's almost impossible to tell the difference. So this is where you see me stopping and taking a good look at the log. Now, if you notice, it looks like it's starting to come straight, and right there, right about right there, is pretty much the straightest part of this log because the hump is up on bottom and top. Okay, in other words, down here the hump is down, up there the hump is up. Now, yesterday I had said that when you have a bend in a log, it's only natural to geometry that when you turn the log, all of it will hit the bunk. Now, this is one of the exceptions to the rules. This has 2 bends in it. So you still might be able to get this side or that side to lay flat, and probably would be close because for some unknown reason, the bends are opposite one another. And that's great because that makes for a little bit of a straighter log, at least on one end. So, okay, we turn that. I'll just get you lined up here good. So we turn the log then on the bunk to what appears to be the straightest part. Now, this thing sort of wants to stay where it is, so whether it is or not, you know, as you turn this, you can see that that bend's becoming more pronounced. So, right where I have it there, and then when you turn this way, it's still not too bad, but then that end starts coming out. So that's no good. So right about where it wants to lay there, and that's the beauty of the geometry of it. It sort of finds its own level where it's, because the wood has weight, it finds its own level in gravity. In other words, it'll seek the point where gravity is basically holding this thing up because it's got all the weight to the bottom. I don't know if that, you know, if you got that or not, but it doesn't really matter. If you follow the string method that I'm giving you here, you can really do a good job on cutting up logs. And the good thing about this, guys, is if you do this a couple of times, you will find yourself not needing to do this, because in no time at all you will be able to do this just by visually looking at it like I do. Just keep in mind, I've been doing construction for years and years, and I use string to lay out all kinds of things. I can lay out a curve with a string if you do it right, and you engineers out there know what I'm talking about. Okay, so now here, let me just put this string here. Okay, now, so that string is straight there. Now, even though the string is straight, this end tends to go out a little, and that's why this middle here is coming this way. Watch, it's not hooked on anything. But anyway, you still have, if you look there, you still have a pretty good cant. And what we want to do here now is we want to look directly down the string. In other words, we want to look straight down, okay? You don't want to look at it from over here because the log looks bigger. If you look over here, the log looks smaller. So this is known as plane, P-L-A-N-E, geometry, all right? In plane geometry, you're working on flat surfaces. All kinds of shapes, but flat surfaces. You're looking for that straight, flat surface. That's why they call it plane geometry, because you're looking for a level plane, okay? Not necessarily level, but I say level in terms of flatness, okay? So if we look at this, well, down at this end, heck, we got a 10-inch cant there. Maybe a 9-inch cant or so. But up in here, if we look at this, at the most we've got that 5-inch cant. So that 5-inch cant comes back to us again in this one. So this is how you hear me say real quickly, oh, I can get an 8-inch cant out of that, or I get a 6-inch cant. How can I know that ahead of time? Because these are the things I'm looking at. And I can guess 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches. And like my wife's a character, she can't guess anything. One time we saw a deer standing by the road, and when she went to tell the neighbor, she said, yeah, the deer was about 100 yards away. I swear to you, that deer was from me to that camera, which is about 15 feet. And she just doesn't get it. And there's a lot of people who don't get it, okay? You'd be surprised how many people cannot judge distance very well. And I'll tell you, as I got older, my eyesight started screwing me up, and distance became a problem for me, even especially close-up distance. You know, like from here to there, I wasn't quite seeing right, but I got that adjusted, so I'm pretty good with it now again. But anyway, you can see when you use a string, you got a nice tree, straight. It's not straight, you know, because it's got the bend, but you're in the middle, coming out of the middle, you're coming out of the middle. Now you're as far out of the middle as you're going to be. And that's what you want to look for. You don't want to look for the good stuff, okay? You want to look for the bad stuff. The bad is right here. You don't have very much before you have to, you know, do something with this. Now, can we adjust this? Well, we might be able to, because if you figure up here, we've got 10 inches. Now down here, if we figure 5 inches over from this string to the edge of the cant, that we can take this over this far and still have 5 inches. Now, what does that do for us? Well, it actually increases what we have in the middle here. So instead of like 3 inches or 2 inches, we're maybe a half an inch more or better. And sometimes that half of an inch is what you're really needing. Same thing with this. Maybe we can move this. Maybe we can move this string here a little bit over this way. Instead of putting it right in the center, let's put it over this way a little bit. Now you can see down here, you have even more, okay? So now we get another measurement here looking at this, and we say, you know what, well, it's still looking close to a 5-inch cant. What I'm doing is I'm holding 2.5 inches on the string, and I'm looking straight down, and I'm looking right about here on the bark. So a 5-inch cant is about all you're going to get out of this, okay? Now, because we can't analyze the entire log, and this is where computers come in, like with Georgia-Pacific and them, or any of them other big mills that have computers, the computer looks at the entire thing, establishes a baseline or a center line, okay, and you surveyors will know what I mean, a baseline to measure from, okay. It'll establish a baseline, it'll take measurements of the whole log and instantly do the math to determine what size cant they're going to get. It comes up on the screen and the guy pushes a button or two. He's oblivious to math. He doesn't know. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the guys can't even do math, but they don't need to. But this is what they're thinking, what I just told you. This is how a computer would collect data and put it together. First it establishes a straight line. That's why you always see the logs rolling. They roll them, especially with the laser on them. They roll the log to establish a center line. Once the center line is established, okay, then you go ahead and then the computer mathematically figures out the size of the cant, and it cuts it 1, 2, 3. Now for us who are, doing it by hand, it's not quite so easy. So then in this case, whether the pith, which is right here on this log, whether the pith is in the center of the tree or not is irrelevant, because you're trying to get the most amount of wood. Now if you're cutting a nice straight log like this big one, you want to find the center, line them up, and boy, you're going to get some good wood out of this stuff. I can barely wait to cut this, and at the same time I don't even want to cut it. But you understand what I'm saying? This is how this works. And I don't know how else to explain it, so I'll just real quick find the worst spot, turn it up on the bunk so you can look straight down at it. Find the best spot by turning it and looking at it, and whatever looks straightest to you. And again, sometimes it's going to be hard. You may have to turn it a couple times. I've seen some logs, like the other day, some of them logs were so freaking screwed up. The one guy from out in Oklahoma said it looked like it was doing a U-turn. Yeah, that thing, I looked at that log and I knew that I had to cut it because there was no way that I could salvage the end. But this one, I think we can salvage this somehow into a 5x5 cant. Maybe. Okay? Maybe. And that's only because I'm guessing at the numbers. So basically that's where you could be. And again, you don't be afraid to move the string. And when you see me looking at the log sometimes, what I'm doing is I am establishing a straight line, and then I'm blanking that straight line out of my mind, and I'm establishing another straight line. It's hard to do, but once you've learned to do it, it just comes to you. And you don't need to know any math to do this, okay? These guys who are math freaks and right away they want to tell you the formulas and add this and subtract that. Look, I have a great deal of respect for you. I can do the math if I sit down and take the time to do it. I don't want to have to do it. You think the freaking Egyptians knew anything about math and stuff when they were building all them pyramids and that? They knew straight lines. That's what they understood, okay? And from a straight line, if you understand two things in life, especially with measuring, if you understand what straight means and what the word level truly means, you will not have an issue. And when I went to surveying school, the one thing that blew my mind was when they said that a level line on Earth is equal distance around a given point. Well, that's a circle. That can't be level. Nonetheless, when you understand that it is level to a point, then you start to understand this stuff. And that's what I'm trying to teach you here today. So I'm not going to make this too long, guys. Whatever this was, it is. And I'm going to end it with this. It's Sunday. I hope you're having a good day. And yeah, to be right over top of this would be more like the view you're getting right there. And it's important because, like, if you notice, even the littlest of change, you notice here how the string appears, and I'm doing this drastically, the string appears way over here. But, you want to look straight down that string. And there's ways to do this as well. You don't even have to use this string on the log like this. Believe it or not, I used to do this when I used to lay out sewer pipe. You can actually take a string with a plumb bob on it, and you can hold the string right in front of your face and just look up and down the string and do the same thing that I'm doing laying that string on there. I'm just laying that on there so that you're not trying to figure out what I'm looking at. This way here I'm looking at the string. So there's a lot more to be told and taught about plane geometry, which I love the subject, but that's as far as I'll go today. So guys, have a good one. Bye.